cards, and tonight I would like to share some information with you about the moon. Now, I know the moon is something that's very universal. All of us would have some kind of connection to the moon in the night sky. For those of you who are aware of my Dreamtime reading cards and perhaps have worked with them, one of the things that you'll notice about most of my artworks is that I try and balance night and day, dark and light, light and shadow. And I have quite a few cards in there that have illustrations of the moon. Behind me here I have two of my favourite moon pictures. This one here is called The Valley at Dusk. It features flying foxes and the moon, mountains. This is the scene you'd see driving into the valley if you were to come and visit the valley, especially in summer at dusk. You'd see a giant moon hanging on the horizon with bats flying around, and it's a really beautiful thing. Another one that I have here that's one of my personal favourites, a very large one I painted a few weeks ago. Once again, it's the moon, it's the creatures that you see around dusk, dragonflies, fireflies. It's got the pond with the lily pads and the water lilies. Another thing that I very much find connected to the moon, there's nothing quite like the colour that they shine when with a full moon shining on them. I find that water lilies under a full moon with the water shimmering and the moon shimmering is one of the most beautiful things I think I've ever seen. You might be able to see too all the little stars at the top shimmering there. So like I was saying, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the moon and my personal ideas around moon and its energies. So one of the cards out of the Dreamtime reading cards is this one, which is my moon card, and this is very much about moon cycles. For those of you that aren't aware of the moon cycles, what happens is every 28 and a half days, the moon goes through a complete cycle. So if you can imagine it at the start, just a dark sky, what we call the black moon, where there is no moon visible at all. The next night you'll see the tiniest little silver crescent of the new moon. A week later it becomes a half moon. It'll grow slowly in size up until the half moon, and then it continues to grow, which is called waxing. It continues to wax up until the full moon, and then once it's reached the full moon, the night of the full moon, afterwards it starts to diminish again and go back down until you get last half, last quarter, tiny little slither, and then back to the dark moon. Now, each of those different times of the moon cycle have very different personal powers. They've got different energies, and we can use that power in different ways. One of the things though that as the moon is an energy in itself is the fact that it illuminates the night. So if we think about it in regards to ourselves and our own emotions, many of us have what we call shadow traits. They're traits of ourselves that we aren't particularly fond of. They could be a temperament that we have that we don't like. They could be avoidance tactics that we use that we consider to be not our best features. And what the moon does, it illuminates those. So when I'm working with the moon, whether it be full, dark or thinny, I think about it as an illuminating quality. One of the cards out of the Dreamtime reading cards is this one, which is Bandy Bandy, which is based on a snake, but I very much wanted it to have the moon in it because it's a nocturnal snake, and it's one that has equal amounts of black and white. So to me it's very much about balancing light and shadow. So and that's something that the moon reminds us as well. It goes through a stage where it's completely full and totally illuminating, but it also has a stage where it's completely dark and it withdraws and it's very quiet and resolved. Okay. Another one from the deck is my Bat Island card. Once again with the moon. Bats and the moon to me are very symbolic, because bats are very much, they use other senses apart from sight a lot of the time to see where they're going. They can use sound and they can use sonar and a whole lot of other things, but the moon, it illuminates the night sky, but it shines a different kind of light with different kind of coloured reflections, and it kind of gives us a different kind of strength because it allows us to see with the shadow, it shines a light and it eliminates parts that we would usually not see or see in that way. I also had it on my courage card, which is the sugar glider. I think it takes a lot of courage to find comfort in the night sky and to work with the moon, because she will go through times of power that are very strong, where you'll feel a little confused, maybe a little too energetic, you won't quite sure know what is happening. The moon to me, as an energy overall, growing up we were always told that there was a man in the moon, that the moon was masculine, which is very different to a lot of cultures that teach that the moon is feminine, especially the idea of the triple goddess, the maiden, mother, crone, and as the different stages of the moon cycle. Growing up we were just told that there was a man in the moon, and the moon was very secretive. We didn't know why it grew and diminished and why it disappeared for a whole night. It was very secretive and mysterious, and I've always really loved that mysterious quality of the moon. I think it takes a lot of courage sometimes to believe in something that you don't necessarily understand, and sometimes with ourselves, to believe in ourselves when we're not quite sure of who we are and what we're meant to do. It can take a lot of courage, and I find the moon a very powerful ally in that process. And this is all of my card decks will always probably have some representation of the moon and the night sky. So this one is from my next deck, the Dreamtime reading, my saltwater reading cards. And once again, I had to include moon cycles in it, mainly because the tides themselves are very drawn by the moon. It affects the way the tides rise and fall, and the same as with our own personalities, as I was saying. Our emotions are very much at the pull of the moon as well, and we'll feel times when we need to withdraw and times when we can stand in our power, and that's very natural. That cycling idea of ourselves and nature is a really good concept to work with in our personal lives. So I just wanted to share a little bit with you about why I personally love the moon, and why it is depicted in a lot of the artworks that I do, and why I write about it as something that we can work with energetically when we're working with nature and we're working with our own personal cycles and the natural cycles around us. So thank you for listening, and yeah, I'd love to, if you have any comments of your own about the moon, please leave them below. Bye.